Yeah, Chris again has the pedigree. This is this a McDonald's All-American. Went to a top level program. Has been one of the best players in his class, for a lot of years. Really competitive kid, young man. Really mature body, in frame for his age, and a really hard worker. And he's got a great game. I mean, he attacks the rim. Can put the ball on the floor. Big part of the season at Kentucky, he was a plus shooter from the perimeter. Later in the season, kind of slipped a little bit. There's just a lot to work with there, and I think he has the right approach. He has the right mentality to grind and make it work as a second-round pick on an NBA team, a good NBA team, in the way that he's going to have to do it. So we're excited about him.
The Milwaukee Bucks have had one of the wildest off seasons in recent memory. From the blockbuster signing of Miles Turner to the stunning decision to waive and stretch Damian Lillard's contract, every headline has been filled with drama. But hidden beneath all of that chaos was a move that almost nobody talked about. The 1-year, $2.3 million fully guaranteed contract that the Bucks gave to Chris Livingston in mid-July, which felt strange at the time because just 2 weeks earlier, Livingston wasn't even on the team. He had just been waived by Milwaukee before the third year of his rookie scale contract became guaranteed, a move that was almost certainly made to clear the cap space necessary to sign Miles Turner. Yet what looked like the end of his Bucks tenure quickly turned into a second chance thanks to Summer League, as Livingston led the Bucks Summer League squad in scoring for a second consecutive season with averages of about 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists on 49% from the field and 38% from deep, which earned Chris a fully guaranteed 1-year deal to stay in Milwaukee, signaling that the Bucks have real belief in his development going into year 3, because just a couple of months ago, Livingston looked like the odd man out, but now it's his draft mate Andre Jackson Jr. who might be on the chopping block, as Milwaukee has just 15 active roster spots, and Jackson Jr. is one of only 2 players on a non-guaranteed deal among the 17 players currently under contract. And don't forget, Ajax started 43 games for the Bucks last season, so he was clearly somebody that Milwaukee was very high on, yet it now seems that Livingston has jumped him in the pecking order, and given the Bucks' limited depth on the wing, this is Livingston's golden opportunity to prove that he not only belongs on this team, but that he belongs in the NBA. The only question is, does he have the tools to carve out a serious role in Milwaukee's rotation? Offensively, I'd say that answer is yes, because he gets his buckets in the easiest ways possible, and all of this starts in transition. At 6'7", 220 pounds, Livingston is an underrated athlete with a frame that is incredibly challenging to contain when he gets a full head of steam. With the ball in his hands, he's essentially a human freight train who is near impossible to knock off his line thanks to his blend of speed, size, and strength that he uses to barrel through defenders and absorb contact at the basket. And this couldn't be any more apparent than when you find him attacking cross matches on the fast break, as he uses his size advantage to knock retreating defenders off their spot. And when he creates these advantages, he either likes to turn to a veer step that allows him to get into the body of his defender and attack angles, or he uses his athletic profile to his benefit with extremely strong crossbody pickups. But he's not just a straight line driver. Livingston has a great sense of pace in the open floor. He knows when to ease off the gas to get defenders on their heels, and when to re-attack at full speed and blow right past them. That ability to shift gears makes him a headache to contain in transition and helps him consistently create high quality looks before the defense can get set. But even if defenses can load up in time, Livingston is still strong enough to finish through multiple bodies in traffic, and he's just as effective without the ball when running the floor, as he constantly sprints through his lanes and fills the slots, serving as a good outlet to his teammates and putting himself in positions where he can trail the play and finish in stride. In the half court, those same qualities carry over. But something I want to highlight specifically is how quickly he makes decisions off the catch. which is extremely important in the NBA given how fast the pace of play is. And Livingston has mastered what is called 0.5 decision making, where you have to decide if you're going to shoot, pass, or put the ball on the floor in a span of 0.5 seconds. And more often than not, Chris opts to put the ball on the floor and put pressure on the opponent's interior. And with a 37-inch vertical, he can finish around the rim in a variety of ways, as he's capable of not only finishing through defenders, as I've alluded to already, but he also has the athleticism to finish over the top of defenders and hang in midair and finish around them. But as impressive as his physical dominance around the rim is, it's his knack to get easy buckets that sticks out to me the most, as Livingston is an active off-ball cutter who frequently catches opposing defenders sleeping by cutting backdoor, and positionally, he's usually always in the right spot, whether he's cutting from the 45 or making himself available in the dunker spot. And on top of all of this, Chris is a phenomenal offensive rebounder for his size, as he's constantly crashing the glass, pursuing the ball, and never giving up on a play, which leads to a multitude of second chance points. Now, with all of this in mind, I was extremely surprised to find out that Livingston shot just 62.5% at the rim last season in the G League, a mark that would place him just slightly above league average efficiency among NBA wings. At first glance, that feels lower than what you might expect given his athletic profile and finishing tools. But here's where some context matters. The G League's public stat tracking is very limited, so I pulled these numbers from Synergy, which is the new software I've been working with. However, the one drawback is that Synergy doesn't split finishing into restricted area versus painted area the way I usually prefer to. Instead, it lumps every attempt within about 5 or 6 feet into one category, and that broader scope inevitably drags his percentage down a little bit. But even within that framework, Synergy still rated Livingston as an above average finisher at the rim for this past season. The only thing that really concerns me with his touch around the basket is the fact that he can be over-reliant on attacking and finishing right, which can become predictable for opposing defenses at times, especially considering he doesn't have much of an in-between game either. Chris is capable of using his size to get to his spots against smaller defenders, as he likes to get into little step backs and followaways if he can't get all the way to the rim, but he can struggle a bit more against guys his own size in this mid-range area, because his loose handle limits his ability to beat defenders off the dribble and consistently create his own shot. Which brings us to his outside shot, where Livingston has certainly shown flashes of being a competent floor spacer, as he shot over 38% from deep in back-to-back summer leagues, and he shot close to 37% from the long line in his first year with the Wisconsin Herd across 21 games. But this past year, his three-point efficiency dropped to 30.1% on increased volume, and he's just 2 of 16 from deep across all competitions with the Bucks. Part of that dip in his G League percentage could be explained by an increased workload as a primary option, as similar to the mid-range, Livingston isn't an efficient creator from deep off the dribble, going 0 of 8 from 3 on those attempts. But the bigger issue to me is his inconsistent shot discipline, because for the most part, Livingston isn't being asked to take threes off the dribble unless he absolutely has to. But even his movement shooting off the catch can be a struggle, as he shot just 33.8% off the catch from deep this past season in the G. And when I say shot discipline, I'm talking about consistency. The ability to shoot the ball the same way every single time. And for one reason or another, Livingston's mechanics just tend to vary, which is why his percentage fluctuates. And that lack of repeatability is what separates streaky shooters from reliable ones. We'll dive into a few film examples to show you exactly what I mean. In this first clip, watch as Livingston catches the ball. He's standing straight up and is not ready to shoot the ball whatsoever. So when he does go into his upward motion, there's minimal force being generated by his lower body, and he stands up way too early in his shooting motion. Once the ball is actually released, I want you to pay attention to two things. One is his extremely low follow through, indicating that the ball wasn't released at its apex and will most likely come off flat. Two are his shoulders, which are slumping back as he goes into his shot, and this is evident by the fact that his momentum is going backwards once the ball is in the air. And as a result, he's short. In this next clip, we now see a little bit of movement as Livingston fills up to the break line. But pause it here. Look at how he catches the ball. He's again standing straight up with minimal bend from his legs. And the result? In this final clip, Livingston is now going to ghost this screen for Jamari Bouye and catch the ball above the break. And when he does catch it, you can finally start to see a little bit of bend in his legs. But look at his posture. He's still standing straight up before he even gets into his upward shooting motion. Combine this with another instance in which he's pulling back his shoulders, and this is a good recipe for an air ball. Now, I don't highlight any of this to throw shade. To me, this is just genuinely why he isn't a consistent three-point shooter at the NBA level yet. Because when you reduce his movements and allow him to spot up from a standstill, he's a much more efficient three-point shooter. Coming off a year in which he shot spot up three-point attempts at a 36.4% clip. And why is he so much more effective from a standstill? Because it's much easier to maintain proper shot discipline on those looks. When Livingston stays disciplined, more often than not, he's cashing in from long range. On this possession, look at how Livingston is showing his hands on the wing as this ball screen action occurs at the top of the key. Because he's shot ready, when his man leaves to help tag the potential roll, Livingston fights for his feet early and is already down in his shot as he catches this pass. So as he goes up, all he needs to do is maintain a strong release, and this shot should be butter. As it comes off of his hands, he has a great finish with all 5 fingers aimed inside of the basket, and as a result, this jumper is pure. And even though consistently having good shot discipline off of movement can be really difficult, he's proven to be somewhat capable when he does all of the right things. As here, you can see that Chris again has his hands ready before he even gets swung the rock. So when he does catch this slide away, he's shot ready and gets his feet down. And notice how on this attempt, he's got great lift from his lower body and stays down in his shot until he gets into his upward motion. And as a result of doing the right things, Livingston buries this three. So if Chris truly wants to be a consistent knockdown three-point shooter at the NBA level, his shot discipline needs to be A1 moving forward. Which brings us to his playmaking. And to be honest, he doesn't offer much in this department. Although he's decent at making the right read when attacking with the ball in his hands in transition, a lot of that had to do with the amount of gravity he generated as a downhill creator in the G League. I don't see that carrying over too well to the NBA, given he won't have the ball in his hands nearly as much. At the next level, his playmaking role will almost certainly be as a connector, keeping the ball moving, attacking closeouts, and making simple plays within the flow of the offense. And that's fine, because he doesn't have the kind of handle required to consistently break down defenders off the dribble. Even when he does get a step, his loose control can limit him, despite having strong pickups once he's already committed downhill. But the handle concern doesn't really bother me, because he's not going to be asked to play isolation ball in the NBA. He'll be asked to do the little things needed to score, which won't be a problem for Livingston whatsoever, because he already does these things at a high level. He runs the floor in transition, finishes around the rim, is a capable spot-up three-point shooter, moves well off the ball, and capitalizes on second-chance opportunities. So in other words, he gets textbook role-player buckets, which is exactly what the Bucks need from the wing position on the offensive end. And he should be a perfect complement next to Giannis Antetokounmpo when they share the floor together this upcoming season. But to really stick in Milwaukee's rotation, Livingston, more importantly, has to prove himself on the defensive end. Again, at 6'7", 220 pounds, Livingston has the ideal frame to be a versatile defender at his position, and he's certainly flashed the ability to use it. On the ball, he's at his best when he can crowd the ball and use his physicality to generate stops. Laterally though, he doesn't have the foot speed to consistently stay in front of quicker guards at the point of attack, and that's often the reason why he looks to switch off of those matchups above the break. Another issue is his stance. He has a tendency to stand too upright instead of staying low, which leaves him vulnerable against quicker players once again. It's eerily similar to his shooting mechanics, where he stands up too early in his shot motion. Same principles apply defensively. The low man always wins. The good news is that even when he does get beat, Livingston's athleticism still gives him a chance to recover, as he's shown the ability to make plays from behind. And when he does contain the ball, he's strong enough to chest up, absorb contact, and knock opposing players off their spots. That strength shows up in the mid-post too, where he can body up and usually force a tough shot or get a hand on the ball. As a screen navigator, the film was a bit of a mixed bag. At times he'd glance back to check for a screen, or he'd just die at the first point of contact, which are signs of a defender who doesn't want to fight through screens. But there were also possessions where he'd get skinny, work over the top, and stay attached. To me, that speaks more to engagement than it does ability. When he's locked in, he's capable of fighting through. And that's really been the story of Livingston's defense thus far in his career. Consistency. When he's locked in, typically at the NBA level or throughout the summer, it can look like he's flying all over the place on the defensive end. But toward the end of the G League season, his defensive activity dropped off. That led to lapses away from the ball, whether it was losing his man while ball watching or being a step late on a rotation. Again, the athleticism does help cover some of those mistakes, even when he's out of position, as he's shown the ability to rotate hard to the perimeter, contest his length, and show his hands to bother shooters. But if he's late, even by half a step, he can get burned. Because he doesn't have the quickest feet, and sometimes struggles to get low, he often closes out with choppy feet to stay under control. And while that can prevent the occasional straight line drive, it also leaves him vulnerable against shiftier players who can simply just get around him. So when he closes out on the corner specifically, he'll usually flip his hips toward the sideline to funnel his man into help at the rim, which is a solid strategy in theory, but if the help is late, it can sometimes lead to layup lines. But that shouldn't be as big of an issue at the NBA level, with guys like Miles Turner and Giannis Antetokounmpo helping to patrol the paint. But overall, the bottom line is that Livingston has the size, strength, and athletic tools to be a capable defender at the NBA level. But the biggest swing factor for his playing time will be whether or not he can consistently bring a high level of engagement night in and night out. If he does, combined with his offensive production, there's no reason he can't carve out a meaningful role in the Bucks rotation. My only quandary is whether or not he turns G League success into NBA success. Because heading into year 3 with a completely revamped roster and limited depth on the wing, his opportunity is almost certainly coming. He just has to make the most of it. And if he capitalizes, Milwaukee might have just uncovered a hidden rotation piece right under their nose.